My name is Miss Stewart. I'm the Kenny got maid, and a roving young girl I have been. So be easy and free when you're drinking with me. I'm a girl you don't meet every day. I have acres of land, I have men of command, I have always a shilling to spare. So be easy and free when you're drinking with me. I'm a girl you don't meet every day. So come fill up your glasses with brandy and wine. Whatever it costs, I will pay. So be easy and free when you're drinking with me. I'm a girl you don't meet every day. I took out my dog, him I set free on down in the county Kildare. So be easy and free when you're drinking with me. I'm a girl you don't meet every day. So come fill up your glasses with brandy and wine. Whatever it costs, I will pay. And be easy and free when you're drinking with me. I'm a girl you don't meet every day. Be easy and free when you're drinking with me. I'm a girl you don't meet every day.
You know I like to bring my guests to you up close and personal. Hi, my name is Timmy Willis. As you know, you're in for an exceptional treat. It brings me great pleasure to bring to you the very talented Miss Sheila Liming from the group CALLAN. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I mean, you are an excellent musician, excellent vocalist.
Thank you.
And I know people have been enjoying you for a long time. And now it's a little opportunity for them to get to know a little bit, who is Sheila? You know what I mean? So we're going to ask you, where were you born?
I was born in Seattle, Washington.
Seattle, Washington. Mm-hmm. And what was that like for you growing up there?
Well, I grew up in a very sort of musical household. My dad plays piano. He was never taught formally to play the piano. He always learned by ear and played jazz and blues music, and my mom sang, and they played together in a band when I was younger. So a lot of my childhood was going out to see them play at shows and concerts and things like that, so it was always kind of around me.
Yeah, so like the bagpipe.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, you're excellent on that instrument. I mean, what was it about the bagpipe that caught your interest, that made you want to pick it up and actually play it?
Well, I have a Scottish grandmother who's second generation American, so her parents were from Scotland. And she had a lot of Scottish pride, and when I was younger, she wanted me to kind of get involved in Scottish arts activities. So I started doing Scottish dancing when I was little, and then eventually she said, you know, you should play the bagpipes. And I said, yeah, Grandma, that would make me really cool and very popular. But I decided to start playing them anyway. And one thing led to another, and they became sort of the main instrument that I ended up focusing on in my musical career.
Yeah, so I mean, did you take lessons, or did you? You actually did?
I took lessons from a guy who was retired from the Scottish Army. He used to play in the Black Watch, the big sort of bagpipe bands who parade around the world and everything. He'd been in the Scottish Army as a bagpiper and was living in Seattle, Washington, and he taught me for free because he thought that that you should never have to pay to learn an art form.
Yeah. So what was practice like? I mean, did you practice every day or?
I practiced all the time, much to my parents' chagrin, I'm sure, but because the bagpipes are very loud. And the process of learning them can be sort of ugly at first, and you think learning to play the trumpet sounds bad. You should hear somebody learning to play the bagpipes.
Now, was there any sheet music involved?
Mm-hmm, yeah, we learned from sheet music. Bagpipe music is a little bit different. It looks different from the way most music looks. So if you're used to looking at normal music and you look at a piece of bagpipe music, it'll look totally different. Because bagpipes, they can't separate their notes. So there's no way to say like tongue like you would like on a trumpet or a clarinet or something like that. So to separate the notes, you play notes between the notes. Mm-hmm. So when you look at a sheet of bagpipe music, it looks like you have one kind of running melody line that's printed on the page, and then you have another line that's built right underneath it that is a counter melody that you're playing against it in order to be able to separate the notes. So it is kind of strange to get the habit of reading that kind of music, just sort of like reading chord charts or something. It makes sense to me now, but it's something you have to kind of learn and pick up.
Now, can you remember the first time that you played it in public, a performance?
I can, yes.
What was that like? Could you take us there?
So I would have been 13 years old. I started learning how to play the bagpipes when I was about 12. Mm-hmm. And when you learn, you start working on what they call a chanter, which is really just kind of a piece that looks like a flute, and that just teaches you how to play the melody. And you don't move up to the big bagpipes until you're a little bit older and more ready, and you have the lung capacity and the muscles in your arm and stuff. So I think I was 13 years old, and it was on New Year's Eve because I was invited to play with my pipe instructor at a New Year's Eve celebration. New Year's Eve is a big holiday in the Scottish community. And I remember that I played Scotland the Brave with him in public, and it was the first time I'd ever played them. So, yeah.
So what did that do for you? I mean, were you nervous? Or
yeah.
Were you,
They're a very public instrument. No one can avoid hearing the bagpipes. Everyone turns and looks at you when you play them. Right. There's no way to be shy about it. I remember that's what he told me. He was like, there's no way to be shy about playing the bagpipes, so just get out there and do it. Every mistake you make, they're going to hear it, so just don't worry about it.
Yeah. Now, what about, do you play any other instruments?
So I play the accordion as well, and I play what are called tin whistles, although they're not actually made out of tin. That's sort of a misnomer, but they're kind of Celtic whistles.
Right. Well, now let's talk about the accordion. How did that come about? I mean, when did that come into your life?
My grandfather on the other side of my family, on my mother's side of the family, played accordion. Mm-hmm. He was Finnish in ancestry, from Finland, and his whole family played it. All of his brothers and sisters played it. His dad played it. They had sort of like a family band that they all played in together, and all of them played the accordion. Yeah. And he passed away in 2000, and when he passed away, he left his accordion to me. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know what to do with it at the time. I'd played piano a bit growing up, and I thought, well, maybe I'll take this up. Maybe I'll learn how to do this someday. So it actually wasn't until probably 5 years later, about 2005, that I found somebody who wanted to start teaching me lessons and started learning it.
Now, wait a minute now. You had to develop the desire to be taught. So,
yeah.
So when did that, I mean, what sparked that? Did you, I want to learn how to play this thing?
Well, I guess I thought it was a pretty neat instrument. It was at a time when I was living away from home, so I'd moved out of my parents' house, and I'd finished college, and I was living on my own, and I didn't have a piano anymore in my house, because who can afford, when they're 20 years old, to put a piano in their house, or haul it up 3 flights of stairs to whatever bad apartment they're living in. So, but I did have the accordion, which I thought of as almost being like a portable piano. It was like, smaller, more compact, and I thought I should learn how to play this because, I have it now, and I don't have these other instruments that I might want to play.
Yeah. Well, I know what. I mean, you rock the accordion.
Thanks.
So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is, how did you learn how to play it the way you play it? I mean, you play it very aggressively, and then you play it very tenderly. I mean, and everything in between. So it's something like your emotion. You display your emotions in the accordion. Actually, I've never seen it played quite like the way you play it.
Oh, well, thanks.
Yeah, and I'm just wondering, how did you come about, with that? Or is that just the way it is? Or did you intend to do it that way?
I guess, yeah, in some ways that was accidental and intentional, maybe at the same time. I like the accordion. I think it's interesting how it shows up in the music of almost every culture. You find it in German music, in Scandinavian music, in Latin American music, in Eastern European music. It's all over the place, and I like that about it. And so I felt like when I was learning to play it, I wasn't really thinking about one specific cultural tradition. I wasn't trying to play a polka accordion, or I wasn't trying to play, you know, a mariachi-style accordion. I was kind of playing whatever I liked. And my teacher very much taught me in that way too, kind of in all different styles. And the first time I ever started playing in a band with the accordion, I was really using it as a backup instrument, not as something that was really meant to be out front and center. So I guess that's the reason why I don't play it like a lot of people would play it, with a lot of heavy bass lines and things like that, but kind of more sort of a melody instrument that's in the background, kind of adding two things.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know what you rock the thing, man.
Thanks.
I appreciate it. Now, you also have a beautiful voice. I
Thanks.
enjoy your vocalizing. You're so talented. Now, how did the singing thing come about? When did you realize that you had this beautiful voice?
Well, I was always singing growing up. I took vocal lessons growing up from about the time I was about 7 or 8, and sang in choirs and things like that with school. Yeah. When I was little, it was my dream to be an opera singer. That's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
So I started taking voice lessons when I was young, and I thought I was going to grow up to be an opera singer. And I'm glad I didn't follow that route now. I don't think I would have been quite as happy with that. But I thought that's what you did if you wanted to be good at singing.
Yeah.
But you know, it was useful having sort of classical training with voice, because you know, it taught me how to control it and use volume and project and everything like that, which you need. And
stay in key.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've always liked singing. And like I said, my mother sang a lot too. So I always liked, there was always singing going on in the house, and I always liked singing along. And
Yeah. Now, what was like the first group that you, I know you're with CALLAN. Is this the first group that you've actually been a member of and performed with?
No, it's the first group that I ever started myself, but before that I was in a few other groups. When I lived in Cleveland previously, I played in sort of like a punk band there, and I just sort of sang, and I played some keyboards and sort of like piano in it, yeah. But it was very much harder edged and completely different from what I'm doing now, so.
Now, wait a minute. You started this group.
Yeah.
See, I didn't know that. Well, how did that all come about?
Well, I moved to Pittsburgh in 2006, and after I moved here, I started looking for a way to get involved in the music scene, and I started going to these jam sessions that happened at Murphy's Tap Room in Regent Square. And I met some other musicians there who I liked playing with, and one of them said, hey, do you want to try and put a band together, put a group together? And so he and I started working on this band that would become CALLAN, and he eventually bowed out of that project. We found other musicians and then kind of just gathered steam as we went along, and so we grew from 2 to 3 to 4, and now we have 5.
Yeah, very good. Well, let me ask you this. Is there anything that you have not done yet that you would still like to do?
Musically? Or in general?
In general. Put it out there.
Yeah, probably. Probably a lot. I've recently started playing the guitar. I'm really bad at guitar, but I would like to become better at it so that I don't have to be embarrassed by my guitar skills all the time. So I guess that's something I would put out there. I think guitar, kind of like piano, is a really good basic instrument, and it's a good common language. I think when you know how to talk in guitar terms, you can talk to most musicians. So I appreciate it for that, and I want to be a little bit better at it so I can talk that language better.
Okay. Well, what about the group, CALLAN? Is there what's the next phase for the group?
Well, we've started to get a little bit more serious about applying to festivals. There's whole circuits of Irish and Scottish and Celtic festivals that happen around the U.S. We've played at a couple, select few, mostly in the Pittsburgh area. We play at the Irish Fest every year, and we play at the Ligonier Highland Games out in Ligonier a couple of times. But this year we got more serious about our applications to some far away festivals, and so we're going to be playing in Carlisle, Pennsylvania later in the year. We've applied to the Milwaukee Irish Festival, things like that, which is a very big festival. So I think that might be the next phase for us, is see if we can get some festival audiences to listen to us too.
Sounds good. Well, I appreciate you coming down.
Thank you. I appreciate you.
It's a pleasure, man. You guys are rocking. Matter of fact, we want to hear some more music. So don't go away. We're right here with CALLAN.
Will you go, lassie, go, and we'll all go together to Wild Mountain Time from around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go, Well, the summertime is coming, and the trees are sweetly blooming, and the wild mountain thyme on the heathered hills perfuming. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pull wild mountain thyme from around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? I will build my love a garden by the clear flowing fountain, and I'll cover it over with the flowers of the mountains. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pull wild mountain thyme from around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? If my true love won't have me, I can never find another to pull wild mountain thyme with me from around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pull wild mountain thyme from around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? If a rude wintry wind rightly raves round our dwelling, and the roar of the wind on the night breeze is swelling, will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pull wild mountain thyme from around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go? And we'll all go together to pull wild mountain thyme from around the blooming heather. Will you go, lassie, go?
We're here with the exciting group CALLAN. And next we're going to talk to another very talented individual, Mr. Steve Morrison. How you doing, man?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
I'm so happy you came down, man. I'm telling you, you guys, like I was telling Sheila, man, you guys rock, man. I really
Thank
enjoy
you.
your music.
I appreciate that.
So I want to know, man, where was this guy born at, man? Where were you born at?
I'm from Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh.
Born in '65, which I think might make me the oldest person in the band.
Okay.
Pretty sure, yeah.
And what part of Pittsburgh?
From Mount Lebanon.
Okay. So what was that like for you growing up out there?
Suburban. You
Yeah.
know, just kind of a standard suburban upbringing. You know, in high school, you could either be a jock or an egghead or a freak. I kind of rejected all those and went with musician. There were like 3 or 4 weird kids who started playing instruments.
Yeah, well, how old were you when you, I mean, what was it about the guitar that caught your interest?
Girls, you know.
Yeah?
Well, you know, you look at all the rock and rollers and you see them doing pretty well socially, and you think, I can do that. Guitar looks easy.
Yeah.
So about age 13, picked up the guitar, as so many 13-year-old boys do, and started playing in bands, and never looked back.
So wait a minute, you picked up the guitar and started playing in bands. No music lessons, or are you self-taught?
Self-taught, yeah. I think I read an interview with Pete Townsend from The Who one time where he was talking about how all the best musicians are self-taught, so I took pride in not taking lessons.
Yeah.
So, and it's not that hard to pick up yourself. You know, I would sit there with my Led Zeppelin records with this was back in the day of only vinyl, records. I'd sit there with the needle and, drop it in to like learn 5 seconds of the music and try to find it on the guitar, and then, it was agonizing process, but I picked up the guitar that way.
Yeah, but what was that like for you then? I mean, how much time did you put into? I know me myself, I'm a drummer, and after I come home and do my homework, I'm down the basement. I got I'm putting the James Brown records on, and until my mom said, "All right, that's enough." I mean, so how much time did you put into your?
Same kind of thing. Pretty much every day, come home from school, pick up the guitar, and just kind of veg out for hours. Listen to the radio, try to play along with the songs on the radio. That was pretty much my life for quite a few years in high school.
Yeah. Now, first band you played in, remember that?
Yeah, it was called Pavlov's Dogs, which we thought was a really clever name.
Okay.
We were 13, and I remember we played on the back porch of my friend Bill Ferguson's house, and the cops shut us down. First ever gig. Cops came, shut us down. Very, very happy about that. We were rebels.
So how did that make you feel, though? I mean, performing in front of people,
Oh, it's a rush. Once you get up there, you're addicted for life.
Yeah.
It's a blast.
Yeah.
So started playing in rock and roll bands at a young age, and still am.
Yeah. So you've been performing around the Pittsburgh area for a long time?
Yeah, since the 80s, I guess.
Yeah. So how many groups? Let's take us on a journey here. Okay. After that, what happened? Did that band disbanded, or you just moved to another group, or?
That band kind of mutated and had different incarnations through high school. I think there were 3 or 4 different names, but it was mostly the same players. Then I went to college and joined a band called the Affordable Floors, which was an 80s band here in Pittsburgh. And that was actually about the time that I met Kip, who's the drummer in CALLAN. He plays the Bowery.
He's a monster, man.
Yep. He was playing in a band called ATS, and he still is. So I've known him since 85, 86. So, and that was just one of many bands. I think I counted it up. I think I've been in about 16 bands altogether.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Now,
kind of embarrassing.
out of all of that history there, any most memorable moment sticks out to you?
Well, there was the Affordable Floors opened up for the Human League.
What?
At the peak of their heyday back there in the 80s. We played the Syria Mosque to a sold-out crowd. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
A lot of memorable moments over the years.
That is so cool. Now the group you're with now, CALLAN.
Yeah.
How did that come about for you?
Well, it was, as I say, through knowing Kip. They had lost their guitar player about a year ago. Every band seems to have one kind of trouble position that has a lot of turnover, and with CALLAN it seems to be guitar. Hopefully that's coming to an end now, but I think they went through at least 3 guitar players at that point. And their last guitar player, Ethan Winograd, great guy, great guitar player, he had announced his resignation from the band, so Kip sent out a notice to all of his guitar playing friends, just email, saying, would you be interested in auditioning for CALLAN? So I auditioned, and I guess it went well, because here I am.
Yeah. Well, you were already aware of the group and the kind of music that they do.
I was, but I had never played it before. I was always strictly rock and roll until I joined CALLAN. So it was kind of like learning a new language.
Right. Well, how do you like playing this style of music?
I like it a lot. It's challenging. It's deceptive because it seems very simple, and in some ways it is, but it's also more complex than it seems at face value. There's a lot of patterns and things that you have to get it right. And Sheila mentioned how playing the bagpipes, how mistakes kind of stick out like a sore thumb. I think that's true to some extent in Celtic music in general.
Yeah.
It's very precise music, and mistakes really stick out. So you have to. There's a right way to play it, and you have to play it right.
Yeah. Well, I know what, man. You guys are, I keep saying it, I keep saying it. I know people sitting at home saying, yeah, you're right, man. But you guys, I mean, the way you playing this music, it's like you really should be on like a national tour somewhere, actually. I mean, in my opinion, because you guys is like perfected this, man.
Thank you. Well, we're working on it.
And I think, I pretty much think this could very well be your last stop.
I hope so.
Yeah.
Tired of joining all these bands. Enough already. 16. Yeah. Hopefully this is the last one I join.
Yeah, man. Well, let me ask you this last question here. And when you look back on it all, do you have any regrets as far as like your music? Any regrets?
Not really. It's been pretty much just a source of pleasure, all my life. Music is just kind of the gift that keeps on giving. There's really no downside to it. Mm-hmm. It makes me happy to play it. I love being on stage. It's great, and there's always new challenges, like learning how to play Celtic music at age 47.
Mm-hmm.
Never thought that would happen, but it's been an interesting adventure so far, and I'm looking forward to it continuing. Yeah,
well, you've experienced a lot. So, is there anything that you haven't done that you would still might like to do?
Never gone bungee jumping. Kidding. Yeah, we'll see. I'm just on for the ride to see where the adventure takes me.
Okay. Well, I thank you so much for coming down.
Thanks for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steve Morrison. We'll be right back with some more music from CALLAN. Stick and stay, don't go away.
King sits in Dunfermline town, drinking blood red wine. Where will I get a skeely skipper to sail this ship of mine? Up in spoken errant knight, sat at the king's right knee. Sir Patrick Spens is the best sailor who ever sailed the sea. Our king has written a broad letter and sealed it with his hands and sent it off to good Sir Patrick Spens, who was walking on the strand. The first word that Sir Patrick read, he loud, loud laughed high. The next word that good Sir Patrick read, a tear blinded his eye. To Norway, Norway, to Norway o'er the foam, the king's daughter of Norway, that you must bring her home. To Norway, Norway, to Norway o'er the foam, the king's daughter of Norway, that you must bring her home. Who has done this deed and told the king of me to send me out at this time of year to sail upon the sea, be it wind, wet, hail, or sleet, our ship must sail the foam. The king's daughter of Norway, it's we must bring her home. Make ready, my merry men, our good ship sails the morn. Oh, but ever lack by master dear, I fear a deadly storm. I saw the new moon yestereen, with the old moon in her arms. If we go to sea, oh master, I fear 'twill be to harm. no, not 3. When the lift grew dark and the wind grew loud and dirty grew the sea, the anchors failed and the topmast snapped, the ship's sides twain were torn, and all through waves pounding, Sir Patrick rode the storm. The maidens, they wrung their hands and tore at the pretty hair, all for the sake of their true loves, drowned away out there. 'Tis 14 miles off Aberdeen, at 50 fathom deep. There lies the good Sir Patrick Spens, cold and laid to sleep. To Norway, Norway, to Norway o'er the foam, the king's daughter of Norway, it's you must bring her home. To Norway, Norway, to Norway o'er the foam, the king's daughter of Norway, it's you must bring her home.
Thank you for continuing to tune in to Up Close and Personal. Next, we're going to talk to another very talented individual. It brings me great pleasure to bring to you Miss Cara Jardine Massey. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm very well. I'd like to thank you so much for coming down and for sharing some of your talent with us. You're an excellent, excellent musician. And so we want to get started and go all the way to the beginning. Where were you born?
I was born in Buffalo, New York,
Oh, Buffalo.
and I grew up in Hamburg, which is a town about 15 miles south of the city.
What was that like for you growing up there? What kind of town was that? What did you do for fun as a kid, you know?
Well, related to my music, I started playing my violin in 4th grade. So my school district had a very good music program. And so when everybody was in 4th grade, everyone had a chance to choose between different instruments to play. And fortunately, my school had a string program, not just a band program. So I chose the violin, and that sort of leads to where I am now with CALLAN.
Well, here's the million-dollar question. What was it about the violin that caught your interest, that made you choose that out of all the other instruments?
Several things. Probably one, that my mother took me to symphony concerts when I was younger, and we usually sat where we could see the violin, so it's one of the first instruments I saw. Also, I have some family heritage, so Jardine, my middle name, is my mother's maiden name, and I have a great-grandfather, James Jardine, who played the violin too. So I knew a little bit about that family history.
Very good, very good. So obviously, in the 4th grade, you learned how to read music. Yeah. And so what was your practice regimen like? I mean, did you come home and practice every day, or how did that work?
Well, our teacher sent home practice cards, and I was required to practice a half hour every day, and my mother had to initial every day that I practiced.
Hey, that's good.
And so she was pretty strict, because I sometimes, you know, I liked playing the violin, but practicing, it seems like kind of a lot of work, and she made sure that I practiced. She was going to fill out that card. She wanted to send a complete card back to my teacher, so. And then by the time I got to high school, she didn't have to ask me anymore.
Yeah.
And she would annoy me because she'd interrupt me when I was practicing.
Yeah. 3 cheers to Mom on that, boy, I tell you. Now, do you remember the first time you performed in front of an audience?
I guess the first time that I performed on my violin was in 4th grade. We had a Christmas concert, and we all played Jingle Bells.
Okay.
And perhaps a couple other holiday tunes. But that was before we had really learned to read music, and so we just had to listen to our teacher and sort of repeat it. And
Now, what did that do for you? Were you a ball of nerves, or what? Was you nervous, or how did that make you feel performing in front of people?
oh, I'm sure I was nervous, but it was exciting too, to be performing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, so you continue to play all through elementary school on through, did you play in the band all the way up into high school?
Yeah, so I played in my school orchestras all through high school, and I also played in some youth orchestras in the area. So there were students from other high schools who played in regional orchestras. And then when I moved to Pittsburgh to go to the University of Pittsburgh, I joined their orchestra.
Oh, okay.
And I played with them.
Any favorite composition for you?
There are many favorite compositions.
Is that right? No one particular one stands out for you?
Yeah, no, I like a variety of music. In terms of orchestral music and violin concertos, I would say my favorite is Sibelius's Violin Concerto.
Okay.
It's not one that I've played, but I've listened to a lot.
Is that right? Yeah. Well, what about the group you're with now, CALLAN? How did that come about for you?
Well, that came about because after graduating from college, I wasn't in an orchestra or any sort of musical group anymore, and I was trying to think of how I would like to continue playing music. And so I contacted Calliope, the local folk music society, and I took a fiddling class there, and I attempted to take some Irish fiddling classes, but they never panned out. I guess they didn't have enough students sign up. So I had sort of had this interest, and then happened to mention it to a friend of mine who was a drummer, a classmate actually, and he said, oh, well, I'm in this Irish band, CALLAN, and so that was the connection.
Yeah, and the rest is history,
Yeah.
huh? Yeah, well, I just what I wanted to know, is there a difference between a violin and a fiddle?
Yes, I play two instruments.
Okay.
That's a joke, actually. I only play one, they're the same.
They're the same?
Yeah, there's no difference.
Okay.
So.
Now, is there any other instruments that you play?
No, I think I might be the only one in the band who focuses on one instrument, though I do sing backup vocals.
Mm-hmm. Very good, very good, very good. Now, is there anything that you haven't done so far in your musical journey that you still would like to do?
I'd like to continue playing with CALLAN. I've really enjoyed being in the band for the last 4 years.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful. So,
what's the possibility of a world tour?
a world tour.
Would
I
you
think
be
that
up for
sounds
that?
like a fantastic idea.
I mean, you guys should be out there on a world tour, man. I mean, you blew me away when you first did the first song. I was like, wait a minute, are they really playing like this? You know, it's just something that it just grabbed me. And then I started reading some of the reviews, the Post-Gazette, and so I said, well, I'm not the only one that got grabbed, you know what I mean? It's just excellent theory, excellent delivery. And even, I mean, your enthusiasm, it comes out in your music, you know. It's like everybody in the group has like a passion for this thing, man, and that's a beautiful thing. It's something that's rare that you really, I mean, being a musician myself, I've seen a lot of ensembles and groups and different styles and stuff, but very rarely do you find a group of individuals who really have a passion for what they do, and it comes out in the music. Some people just go through the motions, you know what I mean? And I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, and I'd like to thank you so much for coming down. Now, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like people to know about you, or would like for people to know in general?
Well, this tartan that I'm wearing here is the Jardine tartan, So I mentioned that family name. That's the name of the Scottish clan that I'm from. So this is one of our tartans, and this necklace that I have here is our crest, and it includes our motto, which is Cave Adsum in Latin, and it means, beware, I am here.
Oh, yes, you are. And we appreciate it.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Kara Jardine Massey. Stick and stay. Don't go away. We'll be right back for more music with CALLAN.
Oh, who is without that in anger they should keep beating my evil house door? I am led out of the hill for a spent, wet and chill from long trudging over marsh and moor. My heel of fond and true, what else could I do but shield you from wind and from weather? When the shots fall like hail, they have spoke, shall assail, and mayhap we will die together. Through frost and through snow, tired and hunted, I go in fear both of friend and of neighbor. My horses run wild, my acres untilled, and all of it lost to my labor. But what grieves me far more than the loss of my stable horse, that no one would shield me from danger. So my fate it must be to bid farewell to thee and languish amid strangers. Right to my genius shine, fall a vulture in Kahasagura. Go wide, young bride, as a Mayan Helen, yea, and I feel use in Callan. Go bride, bride, it's a Mayan Helen, yeah, fall of use and Callan. From a boring queen came a sweet Colleen, and she smiled as she passed me by. She looked so sweet from her 2 brown feet to the sheen of her nut brown hair. Such a handsome mouth that I tricked myself for to see if I was really there. As she onward sped, sure I scratched my head, and I looked with feeling rare. And I says I to a passer-by, who's the maid with the nut brown hair. He smiled at me, and he says he, that's the gem of Ireland's crown. Young Rosin again from the banks of the Bann, she's the star of the county down. From Bantry Bay up to Derry came, from Galway to Dublin town. No maid I've seen like the fair Colleen that I met in the county down. At the harvest fair she'll be surely there, so I'll dress in my Sunday clothes, with my shoes shone bright and my hat cocked high for a smile from a nut brown rose. No pipe I'll smoke, no horse I'll yoke, till my plough turns rust-colored brown, and the smiling bride by my own fireside is the star of the county down. From Bantry Bay up to Derry came, from Galway to Dublin town. No maid I've seen like the fair Colleen that I met in the county down. From Bantry Bay up to Derry came, from Galway to Dublin town. No maid I've seen like the rare Colleen that I met in the county down.
For those of you just joining us, you are missing it. We're here with the great group CALLAN. And next, we'd like to talk to the extraordinary percussionist, Mr. Kip Ruffel. How are you?
Good, Timmy. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm just happy you guys came down, man. I'm having the time of my life
That's
here,
great.
man. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. Where were you born?
Pittsburgh. I'm from Pittsburgh.
What part of town?
North Hills, Glenshaw.
North Hills?
Yeah, about
Yeah.
10 minutes outside of downtown.
Okay, now what was that like for you growing up there? I mean, what'd you do for fun, man, as a kid, man?
Ride bikes, play hide and go seek as a kid.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And then that all changed when I kind of went a little nuts for the drums. So
Well, let's talk about that. When did that happen? And what was it about the drums that caught your interest?
I started to play the drums in grade school around when I maybe was 10. But even before that, I was always attracted to the drums. And I think it was, this sounds funny, but I think it was from TV. And it was things like watching music shows with my parents, like watching the Lawrence Welk show, and they had a tap dancer. And I was always fascinated by this tap dancing. And looking back on it, I kind of think, oh, it was the rhythm that really grabbed me. And then there were shows like the Monkees or things like that. And I always loved the drums because I thought they looked pretty cool. And I had older cousins who, I was born in the mid-'60s, I had cousins who were teenagers in the '60s, so they grew up, firsthand experiencing the Beatles and all that, and they turned me on to all that music, and I kind of got hooked into rock and roll at a very early age, and I would bang on bar stools in the basement and try to make, fake drums, and even the kids around our neighborhood, kids would play hide and go seek. We used to play a game in the basement, and we would call this game Sing. And the kids in the basement, we'd set up, and someone would sing into a jump rope, and someone would play piano on a toy box, and we'd play these old 45s. So music was kind of a focus.
Yeah.
I started playing drums in the grade school and got a drum set sometime in I think '77.
Yeah.
And that was really it.
Now, you say you started playing drums in grade school. Did you have like a school band or something?
Yeah, the grade school. So you start with.
So you started.
snare drum.
Did you start reading music then?
Yeah,
Or-
that's when I started to to read music. At the time, the teacher wasn't all that good, so I never realized that what I was doing was reading music. I just learned how to count it, and then later on I realized, we can read specific rhythms and that. And I stayed out of the band because they told us as a kid that you had to be good at math, and I wasn't good at math, so I didn't think I was going to make it as a drummer.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that was cruel.
So and our bouzouki player Steve Seal, we went to school together as kids. We've known each other since we were 6 years old.
Okay.
He started to play drums as well.
Oh,
So
yeah?
we played in that same school band and played in bands in high school together.
Yeah. Now, when you the first year that you played snare drum in school, had you had your own drum at that particular time, or that came later on?
No, the school had a rental program. It was through Volkwine's Music,
Right.
which used to be downtown.
But I'm talking about you personally. Did you personally have a drum at home at that time, or you got your personal drum set later?
The only thing I had that was a real drum was it was a cheap set of bongos that actually belonged to my grandmother.
Oh yeah.
So I would set the bongos up and a bar stool and a big heavy ashtray that made a ding sound, and I would try to play the beat to Ticket to Ride from the Beatles.
Yeah.
And that's what I would do.
Okay. So when you finally did get your drum set, you finally got your own drums. What was your practice regimen like? Did you practice every day?
I played all the time. That's all I did.
Yeah.
I took lessons. I played music. I'd come home from school and I'd put on Beatles and the Beach Boys and whatever else I could find. And like the old joke, I was 18 before I realized that 10 of my favorite drummers were Hal Blaine.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So you're a drummer, so you get that.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, but look here. Then you finally joined the group.
Yeah, I started playing in a band in high school.
Okay.
So that was the first band.
Well, what was that like? I mean, what kind of stuff were you guys
It was
doing?
just a bunch of 16, 17-year-olds playing cover music,
I mean, did you
Bob
get gigs
Seger.
or you just played?
Yeah. I mean, I started gigging in bars when I was 16.
What?
So it never stopped.
Yeah, that story is a little parallel there. That was about 15 when I
Really?
did my first gig. Yeah, like that.
Yeah, that was fun because we thought we were pretty
Yeah.
hip back then.
So was your first performance with the band in a bar with the audience? I mean, what did that do for you? Was you nervous or?
I probably was, but I mean, at the time, for us, it was we thought we were probably playing Civic Arena, because we had a crowd and we had a sound system and we had lights and, we were just having a great time. We're playing all these songs and it was a blast. We did that for a while, and then I joined another band a couple of years later and we did original music.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Are you right?
I write a little bit, but not a lot.
It's not your forte.
No.
Okay. Well, let's talk about CALLAN. How did you get involved with this group?
How did I get involved in this group? Well, Sheila and a guy named Dave Shiloh kind of started the band, and I had known Dave off and on for years through another band that I played with, and I think he had called me. I was playing in some other bands. I was playing the Bowron, and he called me to let me know some project was happening, and I went down to play with him. And I guess we didn't really hit it off because he never called me back for the band. But then I saw these guys, Dave, Sheila, and another guy, Dan McMillan, who plays percussion, and I knew Dan from local drum circles, and he was a percussion player. And then I guess they got Kara, and then Dan left, and then they called me to see if I was still interested. So I joined the band then.
Now, were you familiar with this style of music prior? Or have you been playing this style of music, or was this something altogether different for you?
Well, I was aware of Celtic and trad Irish music, but and I had been playing in a couple bands before I joined CALLAN, but the main reason that I played in these trad bands wasn't because I loved the music so much. I grew to really love it, over years, but it was because I wanted to play the Bowron, and you couldn't play the Bowron in a rock band or a jazz band, so you had to get the Irish sessions in town, or you played within this idiom, and you got to play the drum. So my main interest was I wanted to play this drum in a band, and I prefer to play in a band and perform. That's what I like to do. That's my favorite thing. So, yeah, the different bands that I played with, a band called Molly and the Crowd or Devilish Mary, they were all kind of had one foot in the traditional world, and they kind of fell off the wayside. I was balancing those bands and CALLAN, and then I think with like the quartet lineup that we had started to really hit a stride, and now that we're a quintet, it's I mean it's just such a great band to play with. So.
Yeah, you guys be rocking, man.
Well, thanks.
Well, let's talk about the Baron.
The Baron.
Baron?
The Baron.
Let's talk about this. Interesting. It's the first time I've really seen one of these. I mean, when's the first time you actually played one of these? I mean, how did you get aware of this instrument?
Well, I probably saw something on PBS years ago. Maybe it was the Chieftains. I'm not sure who it was. And I heard a few albums back in the late 80s with Baron players. But I bought my first drum in 1995 at the Three Rivers Arts Festival. There was a guy named John Millen who made his own drums. It was an older guy, and he made everything from wood. And he made djembes, and he made doumbeks, and he made tombeks, and he made Barons and tars. And I had always wanted one of these drums, so I bought the Baron then. And I had no idea how to play it. I wasn't even sure how to pronounce it. So John made these huge steam-bent oak drums with a tacked head. They were really, really beautiful. You couldn't tune them though. And he just said, well, to play this drum, all you have to do is you hold this stick like this, and you bend the wrist in as much as you can, and then you hit the drum like that. And I tried to do that for years, from 1995 until, I don't know, 2003, and I really could never get that to work. And then I took some lessons at Calliope, which was the local folk music class, and the teacher there, who's a friend of mine, had hipped me to a different way to play the drum, and instead of this old school, old Irish guy method, hipped me to you keep the arm straight, and it kind of, it was like an epiphany. It was a light bulb went off.
Yeah.
And the fact that by that time I'd been playing drums for almost 30 years, it was pretty easy for me to get it going.
Yeah, yeah. Now there's that other the rod.
This?
I've seen you use that one too.
Well, the oldest way to play the drum, a couple different ways. The oldest way would have been your hand.
Oh, really?
And like the Baron in traditional Irish music is relatively new. So people say it's the traditional drum of Ireland and it's the traditional drum of this music, but that's really a misnomer because it really only became popular, probably accepted in the 70s. It might have been used a little in the 60s in the Chieftains, and a guy named John O'Reilly, who went by the name of Sean O'Reilly, who was instrumental in putting the Chieftains together and bringing this music that was in homes out and putting it on stage, dressing up in tuxedos and performing it. And he was a Baron player too. But you can't really go back. You don't go back into the 1800s and find Barons.
Right.
A lot of within the idiom, a lot of people don't consider this a real drum, and that's because the drums get a bad rap. Because whereas with Cara and the fiddle or Sheila and the pipes and everything, you have to really get some technique to get a sound out of it. And I think for the Baron, you get a guy who's had 7 pints of Guinness and he just decides to wail on this drum, and that's how you get these jokes. What's the best way to tune a drum? A penknife. And, but later on in the 70s, a guy named Johnny McDonough found out that instead of just getting one sound, that's how it kind of went. He found out that if you put your hand on the back, you can change the tone.
Oh yeah.
And I kind of like the bamboo rods because they get a softer sound. They kind of soften it up.
Yeah.
And then other guys like Tommy Hayes and Mel Mercier, and I could go on and on about different. Every generation brings something new to the instrument, whether it's saxophone or drum kit or, you go from Gene Krupa or Joe Jones to Max Roach or Tony Williams. I mean, they're all playing the instrument, but they've all changed the instrument drastically.
Right.
And you're a product of your environment. So the guys who were coming out in the 80s and 90s, younger guys, they're not growing up with traditional music all the time. They're growing up with the Rolling Stones, and they're growing up with jazz and whatever, Zakir Hussain or tabla players. So people, the world's a smaller place now with things like the internet, and
Right.
you can really experience cultures a lot easier without traveling all over the world. You can see things, and I think that really made this drum opened up the possibilities of the drum. So.
Yeah.
And you can even play, melodies.
Oh, yeah, Peter
So,
Gunn.
right. So, and it's just it's a very effortless drum to play. As a drummer yourself, it's a drag to load a drum kit into a car at 3 in the morning. So I can just show up to a gig when I don't have to bring the PA with just one single drum.
Yeah, I couldn't believe of the rhythms and the sounds you were getting out of this as you were performing. I was like, I was blown away, man. And it's like this drum has just become even more popular because, hey, dude, we're on TV. Yeah, well, I appreciate you sharing that with us. Now,
You want to give it a go?
no, I don't think I could do it, man.
Right-handed or left-handed?
Right-handed,
Okay, so put the drum on your left knee.
on my left knee.
Yeah, you're right-handed, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
you want to hold it
Like
steady.
that.
What you want to do, you just want to give it enough pressure so it doesn't wiggle. Right?
Okay.
Maybe put this hand kind of, so you kind of, that's where your balance is.
Yeah.
All right, so you want to grab this like you're going to grab a pencil.
Okay.
Right? All right. So now you got it like a pencil. Now just flip it. So this part that's facing out to you now is facing in towards you.
Right.
All right. You want to keep this hand
Like that.
straight. Now think of opening a car door or starting.
Right.
It's just all think of from the elbow down to your finger. It's an axle of a car. So that's the motion. And everything and the bottom here is what's going to hit the drum.
Mm-hmm.
So you just a down and an up, something like that, right? Not quite like that,
I'm
but
gonna change it.
do whatever way you want, right?
Dun, 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 dun. Thank you very much.
That works.
Man, I tell you, man, it's not as easy as it looks, man. I mean, you've mastered that thing, man.
Yeah, and it is a kind of a tough thing to get used to, and if
Yeah.
you've been playing for a while, it's
You make it look you make it look effortless.
well, thanks very much.
Yeah, you do.
But if I'm teaching students, then just to give them, I'll try to play it left-handed because when I play it left-handed, I sound like a
Sound like me.
beginner. You know?
Sound like me.
So I know, I try to remember how hard it is
Yeah.
if I'm going to teach somebody. But there's a lot of people around who are interested. There's websites devoted to this. There's bowron makers all over the world.
Yeah.
And and given that's my current obsession, I've hunted them down and I've talked to them. I've become friends with many of them and get to try
Now,
out
how
some
many
neat
of
drums.
these do you have? Is this you only have
Right
on
now,
the
I
one?
think I have about 4 drums.
About 4 of them.
But since I started playing, I've probably played close to 50 different drums, and I've probably owned 25. So I'll get one in, see if it's something I like, and get rid of it and sell it, and then I'll phone up one of the makers and maybe demo a drum for them, and it's kind of a nice quid pro quo relationship.
You ever think about getting an endorsement?
Well, the thing is these drums, they're not made by
A company.
by a company. They're all made from, it's the equivalent of a guitar luthier makes these things in his house.
Okay.
So there are, Remo does make synthetic drums, and there are other drums that you can buy. The drums you buy in a music store are probably they're not instrument worthy.
Right.
You hang them on the mantle and that's it.
Okay.
But yeah, these are all custom made drums, and this is a calf skin. Skins come in deer, goat, elk, calf, whatever. So it would be kind of. I don't really think there's a whole lot of endorsements. I mean,
Right, right, yeah.
I found a drum and a drum maker that I like, and it's the man who makes this drum is a guy named Albert Alfonso from Texas, and I mean he's currently my favorite maker, and these are currently my favorite drums.
Cool.
So that would be albertalfonso.com. Okay. If I'm just going to interject a little commercial plug for my friend Albert.
Well, I can't do commercials, but if somebody want to talk to him, they can. But looking back on your musical career, do you have any regrets?
Oh, regrets, I have a few.
Too few to mention?
But no, my music, no, I mean, long years and years ago, a band that I still play with, ATS, I mean, we, had considered in our early 20s, let's try to do this and let's try to shop these CDs out, let's try to make, and it became, the music suffered and it wasn't any fun to do. And everybody had a job and no one's really, no one was interested in making a fortune. My father, when he was alive, would always say, why do you play with these bands? You don't make any money. And I'd say, like, why do you go play golf? You don't make any money. You do it because you love it. And,
Right.
and if you couldn't do what you love, then life's really not worth living. So we still play music because that's what we love to do.
Mm-hmm.
So, no, I mean, I've got a beautiful wife and beautiful kids, and I'm at the point, I'm glad I get to play in the bands, I get to play the music that I want to, I get to play with these wonderful people.
Mm-hmm.
We're busy enough through the year if you look at our schedule, so it's not for a lack of gigs.
Right.
And the money, it's great to be paid, but I do it because I love to do it.
Yeah, that's the cream of the crop right
Indeed.
there, man. Now, is there anything that you have not done yet that you still would like to do?
I'd like to eat the pyramids and go to Machu Picchu. I'd like to go to the moon.
Yeah.
But when you talked about musically, I mean,
Yeah.
what did we talk? It would be fun to like play on something like the Benham stage or something. Play on one of the big stages in
Right.
town, or get to open for some big names, or maybe everybody that I'd want to record with is dead, so that's really not much of an option.
Right.
But if I had more time, I'd probably get out to try to get back into some other different music. Maybe try to hit some of the jazz sessions, which I haven't been able to get to in 20 years. Or if I do find myself with some time, I think I'll learn how to play the tabla.
Okay.
So
Sounds good. Well, I tell you what, I appreciate you coming down here, man, and sharing some of your expertise with us.
yeah, thanks, Timmy. Thanks for having us. We had a great time.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, stick and stay. Don't go away. We'll be right back with more music from CALLAN. like to thank you for tuning in to CALLAN, Up Close and Personal. And next, ladies and gentlemen, it brings me great pleasure to bring to you another very talented individual, Mr. Steve Seal. How you doing, man?
Good, Tim. How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm glad you came down.
Excellent.
And let's get started. Where was you born?
Where?
Yeah.
Pittsburgh.
What part?
I was born, I think it was at the old Forbes Hospital, so my mother's probably going to be watching this and she'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was the old Forbes Hospital, and then I grew up in Glenshaw, just out Route 8.
Oh, yeah? What was that like for you growing up there?
It was a really nice upbringing, actually. You know, pretty solidly middle class. You know, it was before cell phones and all that sort of stuff, so you just sort of went out the back door and ran around all day until your father called you home for dinner at night. That was kind of it.
Yeah.
Playing football and, you know, stickball in the street and all that sort of stuff.
All that good stuff.
Yeah.
Now, something happened and music came into your life. Guitar. What was about the guitar that caught your interest?
Well, it's actually drums that came first.
Drums?
Yeah, I started playing drums. In fact, Kip and I have known each other since we were little kids in elementary school.
Wow.
And so we started playing drums at the same time. So whenever it is you start in grade school band, I don't know if you're 4th grade or 5th grade, whatever it is.
4th grade, usually.
I got that snare drum, and my dad knew how to play a little bit of drums, and so he taught me some basic rudiments, and so drums was it really from a really early age until I was probably about 16 or 17, and I started picking up guitar just because guys in bands, we always rehearsed at the drummer's house because didn't want to move all that stuff, so there was always guitars there. So I started picking up guitars without them knowing it.
Really?
And you know, started figuring that. Wanted to play bass, and then when I first figured out that you could play 2 notes together, you know, and I thought, now that's the thing. So that got me into learning guitar, learning a few chords, and then from that point on, from probably about 17 on, I focused mostly on playing guitar.
Yeah.
But I played drums a fair bit as well.
You still play drums a little bit?
Not really as much now.
But you still can play.
It's debatable, but yeah, I like to think so.
It's like riding a bike, man. You never forget.
That's right. That's right. You could be a little rusty, and you swerve around a little bit, but yeah, you can still do it.
Now, back to the guitar. Did you take lessons? Were you self-taught or?
Initially I was self-taught. I took lessons on both drums and guitar through the years, but for the most part, I've always played by ear. So I took lessons to try and learn how to read music, but as everybody in the band knows, I can't read music very well, and it was like a language I just couldn't pick up, and I could always listen to things and play them pretty easily, which is a knack I think everybody in this band has as well. But I could listen, I could play, heard it, so I just played by ear, and so my lessons kind of dropped off when I was probably around, I don't know, 17 or 18 when I decided I wasn't going to go to music school. I dropped that reading stuff and really didn't take any more lessons after that.
So did you play like in bands, like in high school? Remember your first band? I mean.
Oh, I remember my first band.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, I was 13 was the first when I first started to play. Play out, and it might have been, school dances and that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah?
And yeah, I can remember because, my dad would drive me and drop me off, and he thought I was staying out of trouble. In reality, I was getting into trouble, but, he didn't know it, and it was good. And then I started to play guitar in bands probably when I was about, 16 or 17, and actually Kip and I played in a band together in high school. And that was really the first band that I played guitar in, and so from that point onward, I was pretty much focused on playing guitar.
Yeah. So what was that experience like for you, man? Playing guitar in front of people, in the band and all that, your first time out?
Well, it's kind of interesting because I studied jazz. That's what I was really interested in.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, on drums. I never really played jazz guitar, at least not much. But so it was a different experience because I got into playing, sort of top 40 and classic rock. It's sort of been in, the early 80s or, late 70s, early 80s. So it was a very different, very different experience. But the first time getting in front of playing people, it was great. You know, very nervous.
I was going to ask you.
Absolutely, very nervous. You know, and I still get a little bit nervous.
You do?
Yeah, 50% of the time.
Yeah,
I'd say.
that good nervousness.
Right, that's a good nervous. I always say that it's like my friend. I know when that shows up, and I know we're good. You know, we're going to get ready to perform. But yeah, you know, I always get a little bit of nerves.
Well, what was your practice regimen like in the beginning? Like when you first start picking up the guitar? I mean, did you do it on a daily basis? Or?
Yeah, it was pretty much constant. I mean, if I wasn't working or in school, you know, I was playing, and that was true when I played drums too. So you know, I owe mom and dad a debt of gratitude.
Yeah.
You know, for putting up with me playing drums. I mean, I'd play for 5-6 hours a day.
Oh yeah.
And then guitar was less, you know, obtrusive, but I'd play that for probably, you know, obviously because demands of life take over. You don't have as much time, but always a couple hours a day because I was pretty much just obsessed with it.
Yeah. Now, CALLAN, how did this whole experience come about with you? I know you mentioned that you and Kip knew each other since childhood.
Right. My first contact with the band was to mix their first CD. So I do a lot of mix engineering.
Okay.
And so I took their recorded tracks and you know mixed that record. So I got to know Sheila and Kara through that process. And you know, it was a convergence of good circumstances where I didn't have much to do musically, and they had an opening for a guitarist, so it worked out. And it just, you know, came at the right time for all of us. And then they made the decision actually to hire Steve Morrison and me together, which made me then focus more on the bouzouki, the Irish bouzouki, instead of just on guitar.
Yeah, how did you get aware of that particular instrument?
Really by Kip.
Okay.
Kip said, you need to look at some of these YouTube videos, and I didn't really know anything about the instrument at all. And he said, you know, you should play that. And I said, well, okay, I'll try.
Yeah.
So, you know, scoped one out, bought it, learned how to play it. You know, it's related to guitar, so it wasn't too hard of a transition.
Cool. Now, is this the first time you're playing this style of music?
Yes. Yeah. I never really even, you know, never even really thought about playing it. I just wasn't exposed to it. You know, all of my music was, from a listening standpoint, pretty eclectic, but I never went into much ethnic music. It was more, you know, classical music, jazz of all different varieties, and, you know, rock of all different varieties. And I'm a songwriter, so I always focused on that, you know, projects that I could use to, you know, to showcase my songs.
Right.
So yeah, I never really thought about it, and so it was very different. It was like a sea change for me to pick this music up.
Yeah, well, I know you rocking, man.
Thank you.
I'm glad you did pick it up.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it's what's interesting about the music for me is that you know, it actually has a lot. Again, as a player, in common with sort of, you know, the jazz fusion that I grew up listening to, and that it's really technical. You know, you can't play it, can't be sloppy. Well, sometimes I'm sure I am, but you know, you shouldn't be sloppy with it. And it's, you know, it's very, very technical. There's a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it. And then we, you know, learn the rules and then break them. But the rules are fairly technical. So it's a challenge for me to play that music because, you know, it's fast, it's precise. So it's fun as a musician to play.
Yeah. Now, is there anything that you haven't done musically that you still would like to do?
Oh, that's a big question. Yeah, I mean, I do. I have a lot of recording. I have you know, lots of pieces that I have yet to record, and that's probably my biggest love is being in the studio and working on my own pieces. I'm actually, believe it or not, really interested in electronic music, which is sort of the antithesis of this stuff, which is, you know, very, very, very folk, very live performance. So I'm really interested in electronic music and just composition in general, but, you know, it takes time. So yeah, I got a lot of things and some of them I don't know what I'll know what I haven't done yet when I start doing it.
When it gets there.
Yeah, when it gets there.
Well, I tell you what, I appreciate you coming down, man.
Thanks, Tim.
Really enjoy your music, and as long as I'm doing the show, man,
Thank you, sir.
You guys got an open door here, man.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Steve Seal, and we got coming back with more music from CALLAN, stick and stay, don't go away.
I wish I was on yonder hill. It's there I'd sit and cry my fill, and every tear would turn a mill. You's caught Jenny to morning sun. I would sell my rock, I'd sell my reel, I would sell my homely spinning wheel to buy my love a sword of steel. You's caught Jenny to morning sun. Shula-hoo, shula-hoo, shula-la-roon, shula-sa-ga, shula-hoo, shula-da-da-da, say they run. You's caught Jenny to morning sun. I would dye my heap petticoats, I'd dye them red, and it's round the world I'll beg for bread, until my parents would wish me dead. You's caught Jenny to morning sun. Shula-hoo, shula-hoo, shula-la-roon, shula-sa-ga, shula-hoo, shula-da-da-da, say they run. You's caught Jenny to morning sun. And now my love has gone to France, his fame and fortune to advance. If he ever comes back, it will be by chance. He's caught Jenny to morning sun. Shula-hoo, shula-hoo, shula-la-roon, shula-sa-ga, shula-hoo, shula-da-da-da, say they run. He's caught Jenny to morning sun. It'll take 2 days from the city and time is growing thin. But a lowland grave is no grave for the likes of him. Oh, for the likes of him. And for the wants of Highland Hills, his angry ghost still meets on every corner and every close of every Glasgow street. Oh, of every Glasgow street. Unceasing though the winter went on, even though the ground and over the hills and down the pool, that's where we're laying down. Oh, that's where we're laying down. Unceasing though the winter went on, even though the ground and over the hills and on the pool, that's where we're laying down. Oh, that's where we're laying down. Farther to the east and to the north, in a little coastal town, to a mile at least on either side, they all could hear the sound. Oh, they all could hear the sound of a funeral march that set the tune and sung the legacy of a man again, the likes of which this world will never see. Oh, this world will never see. Unceasing though the winter went on, even though the ground and over the hills and on the pool, that's where we're laying down. Oh, that's where we're laying down. Unceasing though the winter went on, even though the ground over the hills and on the pool, that's where we're laying down. Oh, that's where we're laying down. Hummy ski smeelin' hain, who am a laden, who am a laden. Hummy ski smeelin' hain, who am a laden hella. Hummy ski smeelin' hain, who am a laden, who am a laden. Hummy ski smeelin' hain, who am a laden hella. Who in Togin, Brian Togin, Hamanish na 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 hella.